Hey guys, and welcome back. My name is James, and today we are going to be making these business card holders out of 1.2mm vegetable tanned leather. We will be using a template. There are many out there that you can find online. I won't be sharing the one I'm using, but I'm sure you can find some quite easily. So this will be just a rough guide to show you how I do things, and hopefully you learn a lot along the way. So for this we'll be using 1.2mm thick vegetable tanned leather, or veg tan leather, and I have myself a little template here which is just basically a piece of card. So the first thing we're going to do is mark out the template on the back of this piece. I'm going to be making 3 of them, as I said, and then we'll go ahead and dye this piece of leather. The piece is ready to be dyed, but before that I like to use a quick coat of neatfoot oil to make sure the piece is nice and hydrated. Let's try and find a rag that's not too dirty. This will do fine. And apply a good coat of neatfoot oil. I'm not going to say don't apply it generously, because you don't necessarily want too much, but at the same time you do want enough. So test things out, guys, see how things work for you and see the amount that works for you. Today I'm using Fibing's Professional Oil Dye in dark brown, and this does actually come out really dark. The reason I'm doing this is that generally these kind of card holders will be used in a very professional environment, so I don't want anything too flashy. I want something that's going to be very sleek and professional looking, and I believe the dark brown will achieve that. Now this does get incredibly dark. They are not lying about the name. It's tough to put on. I have to admit I find this one very challenging because you cannot put too much on, so I'm going to do my best and see how this turns out, but bear in mind the dark brown one is a tough one to start off with. If you're beginning in leathercraft, I'd go for something lighter, because you can always add on more coats to mask off any areas where you may have over dyed or not dyed enough. So that's why I usually quite like using English Bridal, because it's a very light colour, and this one really works well if you're starting off. But today we'll be going for the dark brown. Let's hope it turns out okay. Phew, here goes. Okay, quite happy with the result here. It's more even than I'd thought I could achieve, to be honest, but as you could see, doing some very light passes at the beginning really helped get that first coat on. I still can see some of the original lines which I've created in the first pass, but overall really pleased with the result on this one. Let's let it dry for just a couple of minutes and then go ahead and give it a coat of wax to protect it. So we've allowed this to dry out for about 2 or 3 minutes here, not very long. You could leave it longer. I would suggest leaving it longer, but for the sake of this video and for the sake of getting things moving, we're just going to start from now. Get yourself a nice clean rag and just buff off all the extra pigments that may not have gone into the surface of the leather. Just a quick brush or buff off should be sufficient. There you go, so nothing came off, but that's always good anyway to just make sure that you're fine. I am using Saphir Médaille d'Or. This is just their basic, or not basic, but their good just polish. It's generally considered to be a shoe polish, but to be honest, anything that works on shoes works on all types of leather. So I'm very happy using this just to give it a first coat of polish. Now you don't need much, because this goes a long way. As I always say in my videos, you don't really need that much. The idea here is just to give it a first coat of polish. Of course, every piece I make is polished again once it's finished, and I give it a good coat, a proper coat, not very heavy coat, but at least I do things properly once it's all finished up. But this will start protecting it, start nourishing the leather, giving you what you need to be able to continue with the project. As you can see, the leather's now taken a nice sheen. Now you can still see the marks, the brush marks from where I've been applying that wax, but that's not a big issue. That will eventually be taken off anyway. But this, as you can tell, is coating your leather nicely and just protecting it from the next few steps in this process. Let's go ahead and cut out the pattern. Now the reason I didn't cut these yet is that I'm going to be sticking these pieces directly onto this like that and then cutting out around it. So I'm leaving those like that now, and we can, what can we do next? Yes, we can go ahead and trace out on these patterns where this will be, and for that I need my template once more. I'm just going to mark out where they'll be so that I know where the glue goes. You don't really need these pieces, you could do without them, but I like them because they add a bit more quality to the final piece. Okay. And I also could have a second piece of template here specifically for that, but I just find it's not necessary and I don't like having too many pieces, templates lying around. I've marked these just a bit higher than what they should be, just so that on the end result you won't be able to see the black lines. There we go. Now this does, however, need time to dry. You can't not let the glue dry properly. That's one of the big steps in getting a clean edge, because otherwise the glue goes all over the place when you're starting to burnish. It may sound counterintuitive, but yes, as you're burnishing, with the heat of the burnisher, the glue tends to gloop up if it's not dry enough. So just give it a good 10 minutes minimum to dry. Trust me, I've learned from my mistakes. And just relax, have a coffee, and come back later. Okay guys, it's been just over 10 minutes. The glue is just a bit tacky to the touch, it's not dry. I would say this once again, if I were to do things properly, I'd probably leave this for another 10 minutes. But for the sake of this video, I am going to go on and carry on, and I'll have to leave it a bit longer at the next step to dry. But since I want to get moving on, let's go ahead and glue all these pieces together. So let's grab this. There we go. That's one piece in. As you can see, the mark we made completely disappears. Once that's done, we're just going to hammer around these different pieces just to make sure that the contact is all good and to get rid of any air bubbles that may be. So use a soft-headed hammer or use something like a piece of leather in between just to protect it maybe while you're hammering. But I'm just going to use a soft head hammer and go ahead and tap all around just to make sure, again, that all the different pieces of leather are adhered properly one to the other and that any pockets of air that may be still there are crushed out and pushed out. The important part, guys, is to make sure you hit around the edges mostly, because that's where you want the most contact to be. Once you cut out and burnish, if these edges have any slight gap in the contact, then you will have issues further on down in the process. So make sure it's really, really solid at this point before you move on. And at this point, guys, before you move on, you just have to let it dry. Just make sure once more that all these edges are nicely sealed, and give it at least an hour, if not longer. If you can, leave it overnight, that would be even better, but give it at least an hour to dry. Now, bear in mind that this is contact cement, and contact cement gets harder and harder every hour over the course of about 24 to 48 hours, depending on the contact cement you're using. So the longer you can leave it, the better at this stage. There is no rush for most people, but if you can leave it for at least an hour, if not overnight. And we'll be back once I've left this to rest for at least an hour. So once you've allowed your pieces to dry, they should be quite stiff compared to what they normally would be. We are going to have to bend them down when the piece is finished, but grab a piece of sandpaper, in this case it's 120 grit, and go ahead and give these edges a nice smooth look. So, thanks to my memory card filling up and me not realising, I've actually moved on 2 steps. The first step was to burnish the edge here, quite basic. I sanded it slightly to make the edges a bit rounder, went ahead and dyed, burnished, quite standard process. If you want to find out how to burnish, just stick around because I will be doing it again for the sides here. Second thing I did was to add some glue all along here. I did mark out where I was going to fold, but the glue is now quite dry, which is perfect for our needs, which means it's going to be able to fold and adhere quite nicely. So let's go ahead and fold and then carry on working on the edges. Okay, now that that's done, we are going to bevel the edges very slightly all around. Go ahead and sand it where it needs to be, and dye, get ready for burnishing. Now to dye the edges, I would normally recommend using the exact same dye as you've been using before, but as it always turns out darker anyway, after the burnishing, don't worry too much about the colour. I'm going to be using walnut instead of dark brown. As I said, it really doesn't make much of a difference. And now, issue here is that we do have, you know what guys, this is the wrong order of operation. I'm first going to go ahead and sand these edges very slightly, because we've still got, and you'll see here, we've still got some leftover glue which is popping out, which I should have taken care of before, but I didn't. So grab a piece of sandpaper, make sure the dye isn't anywhere near, and just very quickly take off that excess glue if you can. So, back to where we were, let's go ahead and dye these edges. Okay guys, bit of a reality check here. I'm an idiot. I forgot to put the attachments on before gluing this up. This is not a huge issue because I can fix it now, but in reality I should have first addressed the closing mechanism before actually gluing it. Now there are two options. Either I could tear it apart, which is doable at this stage. I mean, it's not been long enough that it's really closed nice and firm there. It is firm, but not firm enough that I can't tear it open. It's not what I want though. The second option is to go at it with a ghetto result or ghetto solution, which is to put a ruler in there just to have something I can hit against without hurting the leather, and just carry on as if nothing happened. There we go. So yeah, it's a stupid mistake. It shows that even people who think they know what they're doing can make mistakes. Even if you think you're used to it, well, sometimes you screw up, and that's what happened here. I believe in not hiding it to you guys, not editing these things out. So yeah, you're witnessing my screw up as it happens. But no worries, I've already managed to fix it on both of these, and it works absolutely fine, so I'm not too worried about it. It's just an annoying little thing to show you guys on video, because I thought I had the process all in my mind and all perfectly laid out and all planned out, but apparently, no. Apparently I'm still the idiot I thought I was. Hey, fancy that. Anyhow, let's carry on finishing this one. So we've got our 3 card holders, and we've got the edges dyed. Now it's time to burnish them. Once you've gone ahead and burnished all your edges, you can then start applying a coat of beeswax all along the edge, getting it ready for the second burnishing pass. Doesn't have to be much, just a bit to penetrate the fibres. And once you start burnishing, it will spread out evenly anyway, so don't worry about it being tremendously even. And this will help in different ways. First of all, it will help push down any fibres that are still sticking out. It will help solidify those fibres to the others, to one another. And secondly, it will help protect the edges, give them something strong and resistant, so that the edges will, in theory, last much longer and take less damage. There you go, all punched out and ready for stitching. And for stitching I am using this lovely Maisie thread. To be honest, I haven't actually found anything better than this yet. This is the linen, I believe. There we go, handmade wax thread, and it's the cream colour. I believe it's linen. I am looking forward to testing out the polyester thread to see how that works for me, but so far this is a gorgeous, gorgeous thread. And if you're doing any hand stitching and can pick some of this up, go for it. I believe they only do it on order, but you can find it in some leather shops, so yeah, keep an eye out for this stuff. It's really the best thread I've found so far. I even like fil de lin au chinois, which is great as well. Any au chinois thread is great, but this beats that hands down. Saddle stitching these bad boys, and I'll show you once it's done. There you go, that's all stitched up and ready to go. Now I will be adding another coat of wax, of polish, shoe polish, just to keep it nice and shiny and to protect it and all that gorgeous stuff. Now it is a bit rigid at first because of the two layers here. This is where it's going to fold. So I'm just going to show you briefly one that I've already used and tried at least to fold and close. And as you can see, the inside will go a bit wrinkly, but that's absolutely normal. And there we go, that's your final result there. All it needs now is a couple of cards. Hup. There you go. There you have it, guys. That's how I make these little business card holders. It was fun to make, and I will probably be making more in the future, maybe simplifying, modifying my own template just a bit as we go, or at least as I go. I will be adding these 3 onto my Etsy page, so if you're interested in grabbing one, go ahead and take a look, because they won't be up there for long. And if you're looking for something else, I do have other card holders, wallets and small items up there on my Etsy page. And if you're not interested in grabbing anything at all and just here for the fun of the video, don't forget that a like and a subscribe go a very long way into helping my channel grow. In the meantime, guys, as always, I'd be delighted to hear your comments in the comment section below. I try and answer absolutely all of them. If you have any questions about my process, feel free to ask me there, and I will do my best to get back to you as soon as possible. And I'd like to say, as we come to the end of this video, thanks for watching, guys, and see you very soon for some more leathercraft.